Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of FX Refreshed, where today we catch up with Chris Jolly, aka the Freight Coach. We talk to Chris about his transition from the corporate world into coaching, specifically in a sales role. Hope you enjoy. Let's get straight into it. So, Chris Jolly, aka the Freight Coach. First up, love that name.
Thank you.
I guess it's doing exactly what it says on the tin. But talk to me a little bit about how did you get into why did you become the freight coach? What were you doing that led to you thinking, let's have a change of scenery?
I was a freight broker for almost 10 years, Mark. And, everything that happened in 2020, which wasn't unique to me, it happened to a lot of people. I found myself out of a job and no real end in sight. And I got involved on social media and just realized that I needed to speak my experience. I needed to speak my reality over my career. And I was, I had a freight brokerage reach out to me and they're like, hey, can you talk to one of our sales reps about open deck and heavy haul? And I was, yeah, of course. Like I'm 30 days without a job at this point. I gotta find something to do with my time. So I talked to them and I was, in all reality, I was hoping that they were just going to offer me a job, but the job offer never came. The light bulb went off that if this company needs help with sales and operations training within transportation, who else does? So I filed my LLC. The reason I chose the freight coach was I didn't want to put CEO of a laptop, I didn't want to put CEO of C Jolly Freight Consulting. I just didn't like the ring of it. So I just started the brand of the freight coach, and that has legitimately taken on a life of its own. And yeah, that's really how it all got started. It was, I didn't want to call myself the CEO of a laptop.
That makes sense. It's great that almost daily there's something that's popping up that you're putting out. So you made it sound like you hadn't really done much in the way of social media prior to creating the Freight Coach. Is that right?
Yeah, I literally had a LinkedIn account, but I wasn't active on there. If anything, I might have shared a couple of articles, but I had nothing in regards to experiences on social media. I wasn't even on Facebook, Mark. Like I got rid of my Facebook back in like 2011. So I had no social media presence at all. And within the last year is when I just really went all in on it.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. Yeah, I mean, I've listened to a couple of your or a few of your podcasts, but it's not just about the podcast. The what is that? Coffee, isn't it? With the Freight
Coffee
Coach?
with the Freight Coach is the podcast, and then I put out daily content in regards to sales in transportation, because I don't care what anybody says, Mark. We all struggle. All right. We all struggle with it. It doesn't matter. I'd rather just live my reality and freely admit that I sucked at my job at times, but I learned from a lot of my mistakes and I learned a lot of what not to do in transportation. And I just choose to speak freely with it. I have nothing to hide. I'm not going to sit out here and say that I have no faults. I have more faults than probably most people who are going to listen to this, but I'm comfortable enough in my skin to admit it. And I want my experiences to help others avoid a lot of these pitfalls that you find yourself in sales. You find yourself negotiating against yourself at times. You find yourself agreeing to stuff that you shouldn't. And I'm all about taking risks, but you have to be calculated and accept the fact that that you can't do it. There's a big difference between trying because you think you can do it and like you have a little bit of knowledge, and then just blindly taking something on and hoping it works out.
Yeah, that's not always sometimes the best way. But I love the fact that you're honest in your approach. And there's been more than a couple of these daily tidbits that you put out where you've said just that, this is my experience in the past. It didn't work so well, but now I've learned for the future. Hey, don't make the same mistake as me. And the big thing that drives me nuts, I think, with social media, and I don't want to get too far off topic and go onto Facebook, but there's just that facade, right? There's two personalities, or there's two realities. There's the fake reality, which I'm going to put up, and then there's what's really happening behind the scenes. And that, that for me, it just drives me nuts. And I'm actually starting to see that a lot more on even on LinkedIn, where
random.
people are putting themselves out as being like, I'll support anybody. I'm willing to learn this. Like, I can be this for you. And then when I've reached out to them, or like people I know that have reached out to them, they're like, well, either you get ghosted, or they just come back with, yeah, I'm a bit too busy. And you kind of then look at that and think, hey, you've just put up there that you're like the best relationship person ever in your industry, and yet you don't want to provide them the relationship that they really deserve. So that's a long way of saying, like, I really appreciate the stuff that you put out, and I'm sure that hundreds of people do.
Well, I mean, I appreciate that. And I mean, that's the thing, is it's like, I never know what to say in this scenario, because it's like, I know the reality of social media. I know there's so much, just, excuse my language, but bullshit that's out there, Mark. And I don't want to ever have to, it's just easier to live my true self, because it's like, at least I can wake up. If somebody talks to me, they're like, that guy is who, like, as long as they're saying like he is advertised, I might not be for everybody, and that's fine. But I just don't want to walk around and have anybody say he's not as advertised, because I think, like, when you're out there trying to build a business or build a brand or anything like that, you have to 100% be yourself, because they'll notice those things. They'll notice, like, oh, that person's making that up. And like, the facade starts to fall apart. And then where are you? Like, you have to, like, at the end of the day, I got to answer to myself. I got to answer to my family. It's just easier to be like, hey, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. I guess that's just the way I was raised to always be that way. Is it's easier to tell your truth than try and walk back a lie.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's fun. As a side note, I realized I was going down a really bad avenue when I was chatting to our 8-year-old over the weekend. And he said something, and I'm like, dude, you've just contradicted yourself from something that you said to me earlier on. He's like, did I? I said, yeah, man, look, if you're going to lie, be consistent. And then I thought, oh crap, what am I teaching this young man? No, I should have said, don't lie from the beginning, be honest, be truthful, and that way you're not going to go wrong, and I think people appreciate the honesty that you put out there, that is because it's a bold move. So nice job.
I just don't feel the need to fake who I am as a person, because it's like, if you don't like me, you don't like me. That's fine. Like, I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. I promise, but it's fine. And I've actually, there's been a little bit of shade thrown my way and stuff like that, but it's like, the overwhelming majority of the people have been extremely supportive of it. And I mean, that kind of comes along with it. When you put yourself out there, there will naturally be people who don't like you. And that is completely fine. Like, not everybody's going to like you. I think, like, the sooner you accept that, you'll make it a lot farther in life if you know that.
Yeah, absolutely. But even if you're putting out the fake facade, if you will, right, that still doesn't guarantee that people are going to like you. So that, that coming back to that, let's just be natural. Let's just be open. Let's just be honest about it. And, I think that's going to definitely help you in the future, but it's probably getting you to where you are right now. So on that, on the business side of things, like, so what's happening, where you at, like, how is business? How's things going in that first year?
I mean, honestly, the hardest part about entrepreneurship is the mind battle. And it's when you're going to have days where you're going to feel untouchable. You're going to do everything right. And then the reality is you might have like 2 weeks where you just fail day after day after day. And it's keeping that. And this is so much easier said than done, because this has been my biggest struggle, is keeping that balanced mindset that this is part of it. And it's not happening to me. This isn't a personal attack on me. And it's like that is part of the process. And I think that really falling in love with that been my biggest struggle, but also my greatest reward, is like, all right, this is natural. And I'm being somebody who puts out content, I follow a lot of content out there because I'm always looking for ways to get better, and like, that's my practice. Is it's like, I listen to other podcasts, I read a bunch of books to try and see, like, what can I do differently? And the most successful people out there, they've failed more times than they've won. And then that's the thing that they always say is like, listen, you only have to win one time. Like, you can fail 1,000 times, but you got to win once. And that's like the overwhelming message. So it's like knowing that that's part of the process. And it's like, I think that, the first 3 months that I was in business for myself, Mark, it was a struggle. And that was mainly because I wasn't all in. I had, people still reaching out to me. I was having job offers thrown my way. And when you're not making any money and people are offering you lots of money to come work for them, it's really tough to say no. But
Yeah.
I think I had an experience that reiterated why I'm only going to work for myself for the rest of my life. And ironically, when I went all in, when I removed plan B from it and it was plan A was 100%, that's when the tide started to turn. And that's when I started getting receptive feedback from my prospects who turned into my customers. And ironically, that's when my content, the engagement really started to take off. Is I think I stopped. I was like, I'm done. Like I'm going all in on it. And so it's like, what's been able to happen over the last 12 months? It's completely blown myself away and all the expectations I honestly thought were going to happen. But I think that when your back's against the wall, and I know this is going to sound cliche because a lot of people will say this, but it's true. When your back's against the wall and you have no other option, you will amaze yourself on what you can accomplish. And that's when I think the real grit of what you're made of really starts to come out, when if I don't send these 25 emails today or make these 20 calls, I don't eat.
Yeah.
And that's when you really get to see what you're made of.
Yeah. I think you hit on an interesting point there. Like, remove that backup, remove that fail safe, because I think whilst that's a big thing to do, and psychological thing to even get over. And it's risky, especially, like you do have a family, have a house, you've got bills to pay, people are relying on you. And then to, give up that opportunity to go earn a regular income in favor of continuing to, try and make a go of it yourself. That's a really big thing to get over. And I just don't know as many people, are able to do that. And as a result, and as a consequence, you think you're all in with the new business venture, but there's this, untapped subconscious piece that's probably not going to make you work as hard as you probably can, because you know that you've got this thing that you can always fall back to.
Yeah, I agree. And then it's like, then you start seeing your bank account dwindling and there's people putting big numbers at you and, coming from a small town. I mean, I never thought that what I've been compensated in my life was even, I couldn't fathom that as a kid.
Right.
And it's like, when you get there, I think it's like, you have to just say no, and you have to see things through, because I think that it's a short-term reward. And it's like, I know a lot of the people that I know that are real entrepreneurs, not fake entrepreneurs. They're the ones who say that you're like, legitimately, if you wait like another month or 2 months, it's amazing. Like, then things, start to transpire. And I think that it is that all-in mindset with it. And I mean, just accept the fact that, no one's going to come save you at the end of the day. And it's not their responsibility to either. It's your responsibility as an adult to make the right moves for it. And I think that, that short-term reward, because that's what a salary is it's a short-term reward. And it's like, I just think that fast money comes and goes quick, so it's like, if you're chasing money, it's just not, maybe go for that higher salary. Maybe don't try and become an entrepreneur or start your own business or whatever it is, because it takes a very long time. And then on top of that, you have the world just punching you thousands of different directions every single day. But that's the reality. At least that's my reality.
No, I think I've experienced the same.
Yeah,
absolutely. Like, I'm a career banker, or I was a career banker before jumping ship, if you will, and starting up Green Sheets FX. And, I like to think that I was trying to do the right thing by our clients. But now in retrospect, when I look back at that life, it's like, I am really just chasing the dollar. I'm incentivized to go out and try and make as much money for the bank as I can so that I can get a bonus or keep my job or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
But I look at, those first several months of making that transition where, to your point, the bank account's going in the wrong direction. But that was the happiest I'd ever been. And
same here.
Right. Much like you, I've been fortunate to have that tap on the shoulder to say, hey, why don't you come and do that? But for us, and I've been blessed actually that it's been companies that I've really liked and really admired, and even some smaller banks. And I was always interested in moving away from the big bank to go work for a regional bank to help them compete with the big bank. So having that tap on the shoulder is nice, and it makes you feel like all very much warm and fuzzy. But there's something to be said that if I was to jack that, this project in, which is starting to work and is working, I think I would kick myself in a couple of years looking back on this and say, like, I don't know if it would have succeeded or not. Right. And if it doesn't, but there's every chance that it will, but if it didn't, then it doesn't.
Yeah.
And, we'll deal with that. But I think that failure of starting your own business versus wanting to do it and never doing it
wholeheartedly agree. The way that I see it is, everything's replaceable in life but time. And correct. I will never, if I lose every dollar that I've ever made, I won't look back and regret it at all, because I'm not afraid to work. Like, at the end of the day, I don't care what somebody else says about me. If I have to deliver pizza or go scrape cow shit off the ground to feed my family, like that, your guys' opinion doesn't matter to me, at the end of the day. And that's what I think everybody should think, because it's like, you got to do what you got to do in life. And as long as you're supporting your loved ones and you're holding up your end of the bargain, that's all that matters. I think that time you'll look back and regret not going after something. You will reach that point in your life. I will never look back and be like, I probably should have went and worked for somebody else and not, I won't do that. But maybe that's just me. I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who feel the same way, but I'm just, I just think that it's very addicting, like going into business for yourself is really addicting. That thrill of everything being on your shoulders. I don't know. I kind of enjoy it. I enjoy it a lot more. And like, one of the best things that I saw, a quote probably like a month ago, is that it said, I'd rather take the stress of owning my own business than take the stress of trying to appease somebody to keep my job. And that really struck home with me. And
I love that.
Not that I've had like a ton of bad experiences or anything like that, but it's like, you've worked in corporate. I've worked in corporate. I know a lot of people who work in corporate. We all know how it is. At the end of the day, your results only get you so far. And then you do too much, you make too much money, then you're the first one out the door. They're making them too much. We're making too much. We're paying them too much, him or her too much. They're fired.
And then there's the political aspect, right? Where you are, to your point, trying to appease the senior management, if you will. You're all in the same kind of pigeonhole box, but you're all individuals. And often you're not really allowed to be that individual. They'll tell you can be the individual, but reality, what they're saying is, do as I say, not what you really think that you should be doing. And so having that, freedom and flexibility that you have in your business is, that's paramount. That's going to help you out. And something you said just then about, you might have a couple of weeks of, real shit time.
Yeah.
And then, something comes along that's going to, create that euphoric feeling. That's golf for me. You got 80 really crappy shots, then that final putt just sinks in. You're like, and that's what brings you back.
Yeah.
And keeps you in the game, right? And so it is, if anybody is watching, and they're thinking about starting their own business, it is about like keeping the faith, using the resources that are available to you. Don't be afraid to ask, questions. Don't be afraid to ask for help.
I think that's one thing that I think shocked me, was the amount of people who are willing to help. As long as you're willing to ask for it, there are people out there who will help you and who want to see you win. So it's like, I know, like, what I was talking about right there and working for somebody else, not everywhere is like that. And I know that, I know there's a lot of phenomenal companies out there that take care of their employees, that do the right thing. And you will find that adversely when you're starting your own thing. There are a lot of people, great people, who are willing to give you their time, which is the most precious resource out there, to help you, who are willing to be like, what can I do for you? How can I help you? They'll provide you with information, resources, whatever that looks like. So it's not like, it seems scary, but the hardest part is legitimately starting. And then and then when you put yourself out there, you'll realize that there are a lot of individuals who want to see you win, but you better want to see you win more than they want to see you win, because otherwise it'll chew you up and spit you out.
100%. So we started talking about how business was going. Let's talk a little bit about some of the clients that you have and the prospects and the individuals that or companies that you're chasing. Are they supply chain companies? Are they supply chain professionals, like whether they might be a logistics company, a trucking firm, or are you also, or are you chatting to businesses, maybe importers, exporters, manufacturers?
I got in with it, and like my experience is in freight brokerage. And so like the majority of my clients are trucking companies and freight brokerages. But I'm also seeing that there's a market for people who want to understand domestic US truckload. And that's a big gray area. Is they know how their freight gets to the ports here, but then they don't know what happens after that because somebody takes care of it. So it's like, I've got a couple of clients that do that. And then I also have a couple of clients that they're looking to release their product into the market, but they have a lot of extremely intelligent individuals working for them, but they don't have firsthand transportation experience. So they work with me on that. And I kind of just break a lot of it down to them and help them kind of tailor their pitch on what will resonate with it, and that's been it's really just been a blessing. And a lot of it comes from the content that I put out there. Like, that's legitimately, Mark, where 90% of my businesses came from, is through the content that I've put out there.
Right. So if somebody's picking up the phone or dropping you an email, what are they asking? What are they typically saying? When they're asking the freight coach for some help or guidance, what's a common thing?
Sales. A lot of people need help with sales. And a lot of it is, a lot of the stuff that I put out there resonates with their staff. Like, the constant no, it's 99 out of 100 times you're going to get told no. And that one is a maybe, and it's really just, and then on top of it, it's like, how do we practice what we're bringing to the table, and what can we do different? And that's the biggest question, is what can we do different? And it sounds simple, but I'm like, just be transparent with your customers. Brutally honest is what I would say, because there's a lot of things that can happen. And the thing is, Mark, I've never lost a customer because something happened. I lost a customer due to my own failure to deliver the message and be there for them. And that's where a lot of people, at least in my experience, struggle with sales. Is they're great when things are going great. And I'm sure we all know people that are on, when things are going well, they're on cloud 9. Nothing can phase them. But as soon as a little bit of adversity hits, they fall apart, they crumble, they lock themselves in the office, and they're not coming out, and they're just hoping these problems work themselves out. But my market share has always grown with my customers when things have fallen apart. No, because that's when that true partnership that we all sell on really comes to light.
Yeah.
And that is what it's a lot of training around that. It's a lot of training around, how do we prospect smarter? How do we identify what we're bringing to the table from call one, as opposed to scattering it? Because I think when people try and cast such a wide net, that's when they, like, I look at it like this, Mark, like real estate agents stick to like certain areas for a reason. They expand out in time, but they start somewhere. And I think that's where a lot of people in sales need to scale back, in a sense, is be very targeted in your approach, because what you'll notice is a lot of your prospects have the exact same problems. If you're going after a certain segment, they all have the same problems. Yeah. So how to tailor your pitch to really identify them sooner than you would otherwise. That what might have taken you 10 calls, you can get down to it now in maybe 5 or 6.
So that targeted approach, is that what you also focus on? So yes. I'm guessing a lot of the advice and guidance that you provide around sales, it could be applied to a number of industries.
Oh, I'm sure it could, but my experience is in transportation. I love freight. It's not that maybe in a couple of years, as I'm like, this is my target market for now, maybe it expands out. I'm not going to say it can't evolve into that, but I just think there's a lot of it that resonates with, I've sat in the seats. I know I have that firsthand experience that my clients really need. They don't need somebody to give a hypothetical. I have real feedback on what happened when I went through that. And I think that's what resonates with people. And that's one thing that I really want to drive in with a lot of my prospects and a lot of my clients is it's like, listen, there's going to be very few opportunities that you're going to bring to me or scenarios that I'm going to be like, I've never experienced that before. Pretty much you name it in transportation, I've had it happen.
Wow. Okay. That's awesome. That's awesome. So yeah, drawing on a lot of your personal experiences, good and bad,
Yeah.
has put you in the position you're at. So how are we as a client, how are we utilizing your time? Is it a presentation that you give? Is it just a conversation that you then say, right, I'm gonna walk away from this. I'm gonna come at you with 5 or 6 different things that I think you need to tweak, and you're going to pay me for that time? Or
Yeah.
is it a retainer in the sense that you are able to, meet with the company once a month, take a temperature check, make sure that they're on the right path, keep them current, keep them
So
educated?
this might, some consultants probably would vehemently disagree with this. I don't want a retainer. I don't want to work
Right.
for, like, I want to be independent, and I feel like if I'm on retainer with somebody, then they're like, it blurs the lines a little bit. I like the hourly aspect of it. And that's what I do is, we meet for an hour. And again, it's that whole, like, we have topics of conversation and then we have that recurring training that goes on because it's that continual piece. Like, because at the end of the day, I can teach you everything you need to know about how to gain new customers, but you have to execute upon that. But then when those real world scenarios come in, that's when additional sessions happen where it's like, hey, this is what's going on. And then we talk about that. We go through that and we implement action plans for them to utilize in the moment. And then it just evolves out from there. I mean, some of my clients I've been working with now for almost 12 months. And they like the hourly aspect of it because they don't need to talk to me every single week. And I don't want them to talk to me unless they need me, because otherwise it's like just filling dead air. And I just don't like the fact that I'm billing somebody for time that we're not utilizing, because I want the value to be there where they're like, and that's like my whole thing is, if they don't like my services, if it reaches that point, I don't want them to be tied to me long term, where that negative connotation gets out there in the market, because like your reputation's everything. And I think, like, maybe this might not be the right mindset, but I at least want the people who don't work with me anymore to be like, at least there was an easy out, and we weren't tied to them long term. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely ass backwards with that, Mark, but that's my thought, where I'm like, good or bad, they should have something positive to say from it.
Yeah, no, I love that. I love that. Look, I'm not going to ask you to speak about your special sauce, because that's why we want people to pick up the phone and
Yeah.
learn what that is. We don't,
Speaking of that, I've learned that the hard way too, where it's like, hey, just lay out what the first 4 sessions would look like. And then I put together a detailed plan and I wondered why they never called
then
me
it's
back.
like,
Yeah. Ironic how that works. But hey, again, learning experiences in life.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, I mean, talk about some challenges that
Yeah.
you've faced in the last 12 months, and this could be, I guess it could be COVID related, it could be pandemic related, it could be just new, starting up a new business related, and maybe the two, are commingled, co-joined somehow. But what kind of challenges have you faced?
Man, I like a lot. There's never a perfect time in life for anything. And I
Right.
think that was, if you're waiting for the stars to align, you're going to wait for the rest of your life. And so, like, for me personally, 2020 was the greatest year of my life because reality slapped me in the face. Like, I'm a man of faith. I've been praying for a very long. I know it might not seem like it, but I am a man of faith, even though I curse a lot. But I've been praying for a very long time. Like, I want to be my own boss. I want to do my own thing. And this was that golden opportunity. This was my one shot. Like, I don't come from a trust fund. I don't come from any outside resource to help me through this. Like, everything is on the line every single day. And to me, this was my moment. This was my moment in time, that this is why I was put on this earth. This is your chance. Otherwise, you're going to live a lifetime of misery, of, like what we were talking about earlier, of regret. You're going to wake up in 10 years and be like, that was my time. What could I have done? And that's what I look back now is, it's like what I've been able to accomplish, which albeit is nothing in the grand scheme of things, but a lot in the last 12 months, all things considered. And that's like, that's what's amazing is like that action. Once that starts and it compounds, over and over. And then the results start to hit and you're like, holy shit, I am more capable than I thought I was.
Yeah.
So it's like, I think that's been like the biggest thing for me was like, now I know that I'm capable of doing it on my own. Now it's how do I grow? How do I expand? How do I reach more people? And that's where I'm at right now. And I think that anybody out there, last year was a struggle for everybody, but there's going to be struggles every year of your life. You
Yeah.
know, nothing is ideal, but that is what shapes you. That is what hardens you in a sense of what my old man always used to say. Those are those moments that harden you up. But like, you can take it one of two ways. You can use it as an opportunity to get better or get worse. And I just was sick and tired of living a life of mediocrity. And I wanted to see what I was capable of. And that was my time where it's like, listen, we're all home. Nobody's going out and doing anything. This is an opportunity to invest in myself, invest in what I know that I should be doing with my life. And here we are. It's been 12 months. I can't wait for the next 12 months, 24 months, 48 months. It's only going to get better. And I'm going to look back at this time, Mark, and be like, God, I sounded like a fool on that podcast, you know?
What did I know back then?
Exactly. But that's the beauty of it. The process is the beauty of it.
Yeah. Interesting you said. So like, you know, you don't come from a trust fund background. No. I remember you saying, I think your family are logistics professionals, right? Was it a trucking family specifically?
Yeah, my dad drove and my great grandparents owned a trucking company. So it's like, I've been around trucks my entire life. I still get, honestly, the smell of diesel fuel takes me back to when I was a kid because it reminds me of my dad coming home. And that, you're like, and that's the big part of the industry that a lot of people are always like, oh, thank a trucker, do this and do that. But, you know, the families out there and the time that's spent away from their families too isn't talked about. And like, that's what's crazy is the smell of diesel is extremely nostalgic for me. And it always will be. Every time I see a nice rig running down the freeway, I pull up next to it. I want to take pictures. I get giddy inside because I just love trucking from that aspect of it.
That's awesome. That's fantastic. So what's next on the horizon for you and the business? Where can you take this?
My goal is by the end of 2021 to be the top sales coach within transportation. And by January of 2023, have the biggest blue collar podcast in the world. I'm going for it. Have it.
So I'm incredibly honored then that you're sitting here chatting to us, because in a couple of years, we'll obviously be either A, paying for your time, or B, not getting any of your time.
Nah, man, I never forget the people who, you know, that was like, this is coming from a blue collar upbringing, you know, maybe, but that's a general statement, but I was always raised, you know, you never forget the people who were there for you when you needed them, when they needed you the most. And, you know, that's the thing is it's like back to what I was talking about earlier is the amount of people that want to help you.
Yeah.
It amazes you. And I have them all dialed in my mind right now about that, where it's like, you can't do this alone. Even when you're in business by yourself, you're not doing it alone. No matter what you think, there are people out there that want to help you and guide you through this. And like, they literally are waiting for people to reach out to them and ask for their guidance.
I think there's a lot of people out there that believe in you said you're a man of faith. I'm a man of pay it forward. So like I'm excuse me, I'm not specifically sitting here. I've said through anything I've really done, you know, I'll put in a good day's work. Like I'll work hard, but it's been largely other people around me that might have tapped me on the shoulder and said, hey, you look good. You know, you're good at doing that, you know, come and do that for us. And I'll be like, okay. And I just walk over there and then do that for another bank. And then another bank would tap me on the shoulder. So like, I've just kind of like, I don't want to say drifted, but you know, I keep my head down, do what I do. Somebody says, come do it for me. And then I've typically moved over after maybe a few years or so. And so because of that, I'm very keen to pay it forward. Yeah. And so, you know, if I can provide that level of help and that level of assistance for somebody else, then I'm more than happy to do that, you know, give up my time for that. And so I think you're absolutely spot on. There are people out there that really do genuinely want to support other human beings. Yeah, and it's
there really
nice
are.
To see them come out.
No, definitely. And it's like what you're talking about right there is it's like, I think those are putting deposits into the karma bank, you know? Like those are putting deposits into the universal bank right there
Yeah.
of you're willing to help others, therefore somebody will be willing to help you. And I think like that's just so lost is it's like I just think that we're just at a point in society right now where it's so self-serving and it's like it's always about what can others do for me. I don't believe in that.
Yeah.
What can I do for somebody else? Because I know that at some point in time I'm going to need help.
Yeah.
And I would rather be on the positive. I would rather have a surplus of positive karma or universe deposits in my bank account than be fighting an uphill battle and then realize that I've burnt every bridge that I
Yeah.
possibly could to try and make a dollar. I just don't believe in that. I would
No.
rather look back and be like, at least I helped as many people as possible.
Yeah. I mean, failing to do that, I think that's going to come back and bite you on the ass.
Yeah.
Or, sorry, as you Americans say, ass. But I similar conversation again with my 8-year-old. Like we call it filling your bucket. There's a book that he has,
Yeah.
and it is about doing something right for somebody else, doing something positive for somebody else. Not only fills their bucket, but will fill your bucket as well. By like ignoring those individuals, you're going to take something out of their bucket, but you will take something out of your bucket, whether you think that's going to happen or not. You're not going to feel as emotionally or spiritually fulfilled if you don't do that.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
agree with that wholeheartedly. You have to. It's a complete reciprocation at that point, and you're not going to get opportunities unless you're willing to give opportunities. And I just think that that's one thing that and it's a challenge because when you are starting out and you don't have any money coming in and everything else, you're like, I just got to make money. I just like the money's going to come. I promise anybody that. And I've been fortunate. There's been a couple of individuals who've told me that they're like, stop worrying about the money. It will come. And that's when you kind of took it off of the pedestal and you really just focused on the results. You focused on
Yeah.
the efforts and the energies that you were putting forth. And that's when some tides are going to start to turn. And I know there's not like, I guess I look at it like this. Every hour that I worked as a broker was the investment period needed. That's where I raised the capital to start Sea Jolly or Freight Coach Enterprises.
Right.
That's where it all was. Is that time was the investment period. That's where I was raising capital for the business to be started with. And I enjoy it, and I want others out there to legitimately, like, if you're not in that position, because I know a lot of people aren't, you got to work 2 jobs, 3 jobs, whatever it takes. It's going to make sense one day. One day you're going to look back and be like, that was the best times ever when we were couch surfing or, we were working 2 or 3 jobs just to pay for everything. And it's all going to make sense one day. It just takes time. And that's one thing that people don't want to invest in is the time that's necessary to grow stuff.
Well, it's and I've been in this situation. Once you become addicted to a salary, once you become addicted to, a steady paycheck, it's very difficult to kiss that goodbye, to say, right, I'm gonna sever those ties, because now that's on your shoulders. That's your responsibility. That if it doesn't work, that could have a big consequence to whether you have a roof over your head, food on the table, and a family that kind of stays together. So, kudos to you for taking that jump, if you will, and having that leap of faith and following your passion.
Thank you.
Really, and I'm super happy to support whatever it is that you need, and if we can help you go in the right direction, then good people deserve good things, and so I consider you to be good people. So let's talk about where can people get in touch? How can people get in touch with you? Where can they find you?
The best place to find me on is LinkedIn, and that I'm active on there all the time. Or you can reach out to me direct via email. It's just chris@thefreightcoach.com. And that all comes to me. I don't have anybody out. Like, it's all me. I'm not that important or too big to respond to my own emails.
Fantastic. Absolutely. And I would definitely encourage people to check out your daily output on LinkedIn. Some of these, really insightful 2-3 minute, just take time to listen to it, sessions. And then the coffee with the freight coach as well is definitely something that I think is going to benefit those out there. And there's a lot probably that people don't know, but there's a lot that people don't know what they don't know. They don't know what questions to ask. And someone like yourself can point them in the right direction.
And side note, that's the way I like to structure a lot of my podcasts is I'm the one who's asking the questions that a lot of people are too afraid to ask because they don't want to sound a certain type of way where it's, I don't care.
Yeah.
I just think that, like the vulnerability piece of it, just be vulnerable. Like who cares at the end of the day?
Yeah.
And that's one thing that I work with my prospects on, Mark, and like, with my clients when they are prospecting is it's like, at the end of the day, a lot of these people, you're never going to meet them in life. You're not going to have that much of a profound effect on their daily. They forget about you 5 seconds after you call. Why are you giving them 5 minutes of your brain?
Yeah.
Why are you giving them 5 minutes? Just move on.
Love it. Well, listen, thanks for sharing
course.
some insights. Thanks for being a great guest today. And if anybody out there does need to connect with you, they've got the details. If not, they can always reach out to me as well. But thanks for your time, Chris, and wish you all the best with everything.
Hey, I appreciate the opportunity to come on here and speak today, Mark. Thank you.
You're welcome.